on blast.
Thank you. You're far too kind for tuning in once again to a little thing we like to call the On Blast podcast. Again, my name is Sheldon Alexander. I'm here with my guy, Andrew Webster, and you can see him live and live in color. Mr. Andrew Webster, what's going on, my dude? How you doing?
Hey, man, I'm doing great. Staying sane, having a good time.
You know, it's good to be back and shooting the shit. And as always, as mentioned last time, right? We know there's a lot of serious stuff going on, so we want to give shouts to all the frontline workers, the people in the hospitals, the people who are really doing the work right now. And we just want to give people a chance to take a step back and maybe get some laughs, joke around, and also give some advice on what to watch and how to, you know, spend your time at home, because that's the key. We all need to be at home right now to really stop this craziness, right? It's not that difficult. Stay home. And we're going to try to make that a lot easier here on this The On Blast podcast, where we're just going to talk about what we've been watching. And, you know, you gave me something to watch last time we spoke, and I've watched that. And also, I feel like the whole world right now is watching one thing and one thing only. Tiger King.
It blew up, man. It blew up. It's crazy. Tiger King.
How weird has it been that one thing has taken over the pop culture sphere? And I get that everyone's at home, but you would think that with so many options, why is it that it's Tiger King that has like struck the nation, struck everybody?
It's crazy. It's like in the times that we're living in, like back in the day, there used to be, you know, a monoculture. Everybody would watch Seinfeld on Thursday nights or TGIF on Fridays if you were a certain age. And everyone would watch them. They'd get like 30 million people tuning in. But now, in the age where we're living in with all the streaming, all the multiple channels, there's 400 channels if you have cable. But this one 7-part documentary brought everybody together, and everybody's talking about it. And now, I mean, my wife and I, we saw the preview, and it was like, okay, we got to watch this right now. And then it was after the second episode where it was like, oh yeah, you know that she killed her wife, right? And we were like, oh, we're going to be watching this the rest of the night. I mean, this is it.
It's true. It is the funny way how it happened. Like, so did you end up watching the whole thing in one sitting? Two sittings. Okay.
2 sittings. Because we started late. We started at like 10 at night, and then we got through like 4 or 5, and it was like, we have to sleep.
Yeah, you got to go to bed. No, totally hear you. I feel like most people have been watching it in 1 or 2 sittings, and I definitely, like, it was one sitting, and the reason why was because once it started to get to the real...
7 hours straight you did.
Well, here's the thing. Once it started to get to the real fuckery, I was like, okay, let me just finish this because I'm not going to sit back down and watch these assholes. Right? Like...
Right.
That was just my thought process. And, you know, it's so insane. And part of the reason why, you know, and I see a lot of debate now that happens to be going on, which, you know, it's everybody needs to watch this. And then you'll have the backlash to that where it's like, no, I'm not watching this just because everyone says to watch it. And to me, it was like, okay, well, if we're, first off, I like to know what's going on. I'll try to keep up. And there's certain things where it's like, okay, everyone's talking about this. Let me at least see what it is. And I'll give it one episode because, again, what else are we doing? We're all at home. You have the time to at least give it one episode and make a decision or not, right? So that's where it got me in. And I will say the first 3 episodes, great storytelling in terms of just introduction to these crazy characters, starting obviously with your man's Joe Exotic, which I'll say this, in terms of nicknames... That comes out on the high end of dope nicknames. That's a good nickname, no?
It's simple and it's to the point, and it's for me. It was that like it was. He had the elevator pitch, right? Okay, so I'm a crazy redneck. I'm gay. I own like 700 tigers.
And I have 2 husbands.
And I look like this.
He has 2 husbands, a crazy mullet.
2 husbands. I have 2 husbands with about 6 teeth combined for the 2 of them.
It's insane. You're right about the elevator pitch. There's just so much going on, and like it's like each facet of his life could be its own story. And then you combine it all together that my guy's just this zookeeper that like the other weird part about this was they filmed everything, which that part I found fascinating. And maybe it's because we work in production or whatever, and that's what made me really like get that enthralled in the fact that they literally film everything. Like that part is crazy. But, you know, you have add in all the characters that work with him too, and that side of it was completely ridiculous. That like, you know,
it was the whole cast of
for
characters
sure.
really like, I mean, like any good like ensemble you have, it can't just be about the one
right.
guy, right? Like, because if it's about the one guy, it's going to get old after a while. But it's about her in Florida, and it's about the crazy Jeff guy who shows up, and it's about the guy in South Carolina with the crazy hair.
But even just like the workers, right? Like you have the person who had their hand bitten off.
The hand,
right?
Yeah.
Then you have the guy with the two fake legs, and you're thinking, okay, definitely this is a tiger accident. And my guy's like, nah, I was zip lining, and it
then
broke.
He's like, it's a zip line accident. You're like,
what?
Oh my god, I don't know.
And my guy fell like 50 feet in the air, and you're just like, wait, what is happening here, right? Like none of this seems real. There's so many times through the first 3 episodes, Webby, that I stopped and I was like, wait, people have been tricking me, and this is a mockumentary. This is not real. Like, that's what I kept thinking through the first 3 episodes. I'm like, this is not real. I like, at one point I searched, I was like, wait, this is mockumentary, right? And it's like, no, it's real life. And I was like, all right, sure.
So they showed that clip in the documentary of John Oliver in his show, because when he ran for president, John Oliver did this whole thing about everybody who wasn't Hillary or Trump running for president. And he showed this clip, and I was like, dude, that guy looks crazy. Because I was like, oh, this guy looks familiar. Like, where do I know this story from? Now, not only that, but this all happened in central Oklahoma, okay? Now, I grew up for a bit of my life in northeast Oklahoma. But a bunch of my friends all went to school at OU, which is, you know, just outside Oklahoma City, maybe about a 2-hour drive from Joe Exotic's place.
Okay.
And I have friends who are in the news business. And this girl, the wife of my friend is like, oh, I know all about Joe Exotic. I know all the reporters that were featured in the documentary. One of my buddies was like, it was weird watching that documentary and seeing people that I knew who went to the zoo. And he was like, oh, I know that guy. I was like, oh my God,
yo,
man.
That's insane. That's insane. But like, there's so many, and we're sticking on Joe Exotic for a sec because there's so much here, right? In terms of all these other characters. So my guy who was his campaign manager, that guy seems to be like just a weird character as well. The head like zookeeper guy who, you know, when they really started to dictate, I guess it was episode 2 when they started talking about kind of like how these things are like a cult, right? And like how he would kind of get people who had troubled past to like work for him, because you're thinking, why would people work for him? And you find out, okay, well, they get paid nothing. It's like $100 a week. And my guy has them sleeping.
But they're all like vagrants.
Yeah, he has them sleeping in these like crazy rundown trailers that are just like cockroach infested, disgusting. Eating old meats.
Eating meat?
Old meats from Walmart. And I'm just like, okay, this is real life? It was so odd. And then, okay, so we'll get back to Joe Exotic for sure, the Tiger King. But then we meet Doc Antles, who is his mentor essentially, right? Like, and when he broke it down like that, it kind of makes sense. What was your first impression of Doc Antles? Because mine was like, oh, okay, so Joe Exotic is like the Brand X version of this guy, right? Like he's a bootleg version of this guy. And it kind of makes sense, right? After they explain it like that.
They all seem to like, all those people in the big cat business, I guess you'd call it. They all seem to like, spring forth from this guy, Doc Antles, who like, but then there was like, he knew the guy down in Miami.
Yes, the guy in Miami, he could have had his own episode, and they didn't even give us nearly enough of that. My guy did mad years. He was like Tony Montana.
Scarface.
Right. They're like, this Tony Montana guy just collected all these animals because he liked animals. And it's like, what? And they used to like put the keys of coke into the snakes. I'm like,
yeah, man.
I'm like, okay, I need to hear more about that guy's story. And then you just never heard about him after he says, well, this lady killed her husband. And you're just like, wait, okay, there's way too much going on here. But let's stick with Doc Antles, because his story was super interesting as well because, if Joe Exotic had what, two husbands, Doc Antle had what, three or four wives? Do I have that correct?
Yeah,
And
yeah. Well, like I don't know if they were official wives, but they were definitely like his wives. You know.
okay. Well, either way, yeah, he had a crew. He had a crew with him, right? And
He was rolling squad
he
deep.
made them change their names, right? They all had to, he gave them different names. He now had them dress up in like these sexy outfits, which is kind of weird because you run like kind of a family friendly like kids park. No? Isn't that weird? But you have these women dressed up in like these super tight outfits. He made them all get boob implants, and it's just like, yo, my guy was on another level. Like he's on one for sure.
There's another really good documentary that's on Netflix called Wild Wild Country,
Okay.
and it's about a cult, like
Okay.
a East Indian. Like they had the guru, and the guru had all the followers. It's incredible, and if you haven't seen that, you should definitely check that out. But this guy, Doc Antle, definitely had a lot of that East Indian guru cult thing going on with his people about changing their names to what he wanted them to be, working them like 12 hours a day, changing their dress, like being like, oh, you can leave, but you can't really leave.
Yeah.
Like he had that whole cult thing going on in South Carolina. It was wacky.
And they even had the whole breakdown from one of the women who used to work for him, but she left. And I wanted, and again, there's so many things that were left out. Like I wanted to know her story of how she got out. Like they never really explained that, right? But
this was kind of the genius part of the show, because I find that now, especially a lot of these documentaries, they go on and on and on and on.
Okay.
I don't know if you saw McMillions.
I did.
But it was like 5 episodes. It could have been 2.
For sure.
The nice thing about the Joe Exotic one was that it was 7, and it basically introduced us to all these crazy characters. It didn't dig too deep other than to Joe. But I think that helped it out because it kept it moving.
That's fair. And like every episode, it was almost introducing you and giving you a backstory to a new character, which allowed you to like
my jet skiing dude with the long hair.
You know what's the best part about it too was because everyone's watching it at different times, you see the memes flying around and you don't really know what it's from. Like, you know who I really thought that was? I kept seeing the jet ski thing, right? And you know what I thought that was, honestly? I thought it was a fake meme.
Me with long hair?
No. I thought it was a fake meme that someone made up of, remember that lady who called the cops on the kids who were like selling water or whatever? Is that what it was? Like
the Karen.
Yes. That's who I thought it was at first when I first was seeing the meme and I hadn't watched Tiger King yet. And I was like, yo, that's a pretty dope meme someone made up of this lady. Like, what happened to her? Did she do something again? And it wasn't until I was watching Tiger King that I was like, oh my God, that's this dude who, we'll get to him, of course, because he's insane as well. But as you mentioned, there's so many different parts and so many different ways they could go. But the central storyline essentially involves Joe, and then in the second episode, we get introduced to Carol, right? And the storyline with Carol, who, I mean, again, this whole doc could have just been about her, and that would have been its own super interesting doc as well. But her storyline, we get introduced to her. And in the beginning, it's like, okay, well, she's basically for animal rights. And
yeah, you're like, oh, this is the good guy.
Yeah, this is a good guy. This is who we're supposed to root for here. But then as they dig deeper, it's like, wait a second. She just does the same thing as these guys do. Like, there's literally no difference. She doesn't pay her employees. She's still making money off all these animals as well. And she doesn't pay her employees anything. Whereas at least Joe gives them something, which, you know,
somewhere to stay and like a community.
Yeah. And I'll say this too. I don't know if I'm not really ranking all these people because I think all these people were despicable. And by the end, I was like done with all of them. I was like, fuck all these people. Right. Exactly. But like Carol in the beginning, you're kind of like, okay, well, she's trying to do good. She's trying to get all this legislation put through, like the government and all that. And it seems like, okay, something's kind of odd. And then whatever episode it is, it just ends with the montage of all these people being like, oh, well, she just acts like she's above everyone when ask her about what happened to her ex-husband.
Yeah.
And the episode,
no. that was the episode that got me. It was like, oh, you don't know that she killed her husband, and you're just like, wait, what?
Rewind. Sorry, what was that? Let me make sure that's what it said on the subtitles. Like,
Yeah,
it's completely insane. And then you go into this whole deep story about what happened to her ex-husband who just disappeared. Right? And we don't know what happened to the ex-husband. But all the meanwhile, all these stories come back to the central theme of Joe versus Carol. That's essentially the theme of this whole thing. And obviously, I'm going to say spoiler alert, although, like, obviously, if you're watching this right now, I would hope that you have watched Tiger King. And if not, you should watch it.
It's the most popular show in the world right now. I would say that most people out there watching it already.
Yeah.
And if not, they need to right now.
Yeah. And of course, like, the thing is, this assumption that something has to be great for you to watch it. Like, people end up watching bad movies all the time. Right? Like, that's not...
what else are you going to do?
Exactly.
Like, that's what I don't... It's not like you got to go to work, you know?
Right. It's so true. So that's the dialogue going back and forth between all these guys. And then we get introduced to some other characters. Jeff Lowe comes in later on, and James Garrison comes in later on.
Alan. What about Alan?
Alan.
The scariest dude, scariest white dude
right?
ever.
Like, anytime you see that tear tattoo, right? That's a thing. That's a real one. You know that's a real one.
Oh,
but
man.
So you have all these crazy characters, and other than Joe, okay, I'll say this, okay, Webby, other than Joe, who obviously is a Tiger King, he's the headliner, he's why we're here. Which character?
He's number one with the bullet.
Right. Other than Joe, which is saying a lot, because there's so much to talk about with Joe, right? And, like, we just glossed over, like, his run for governor, which was also insane. But other than Joe, which character kind of stood out to you?
Having lived in Oklahoma, would have made a perfect Oklahoma governor.
Fair enough. I kind of understand why KD might have wanted to leave and go to Golden State. Is that a thing? Does that make sense or no?
Yo, Shaq, was Shaq
well, yeah,
there?
Shaq popped up in one of Doug Antle's videos, right? Or Don Antle's, right? Shaq just pops up all of a sudden, right? And you're just like, what is going on here? Did you see? Hold on. There's photos online today. 2 photos popped up. One popped up of a young Don Antles holding a tiger on a leash, like on the set of Britney Spears' performance at the MTV Awards in like 2001. Have you seen this picture?
What?
Yes,
no.
It's online. You can. It's on Twitter right now.
Oh my
It's like
God.
a young. He has like long black hair, and he's like a lot slimmer, but he's standing right behind Britney Spears with a tiger on a leash, and Britney's like getting ready to go out on stage to perform. Like, I think it's "I'm a Slave for You" or whatever. And then there's some other picture that came out of Britney Spears sitting in the stands, and she's sitting beside a woman that looks like it could be Carol. Like, I'm not making this up. Like, it's online. Go look at it. It looks like...
And it's Britney?
No, Britney Spears is sitting in the seats of, like, an award show. I'm pretty sure it's the MTV Awards. And there's a woman beside her, and it kind of looks like it could be a young Carol. Like, so the internet's kind of going crazy being like, yo, these people have been around forever. What's going on? And they almost got to Britney.
You could see how somebody like Britney would kind of get hooked up with Carol, right? It's like, oh, this lady is totally for conserving, like rescuing big cats. Mm-hmm. Like, that's a great thing that I want to be involved in.
Well, Carol's a genius. Like, low-key, Carol's a genius, right? Like, there's no, like, ifs, ands, or buts about it. She's super smart, super calculated. How she built her business to, like, make a whole shit ton of money. And I'm not even talking about whether she's scamming the animals or not, which I believe she is. But just the way that she was able to build, like, the online following and, like, trick people into coming to her sanctuary that she built. And she puts up the videos every day of her, you know, updating what's going on her grounds. And she has, like, millions of...
Hate cats and kittens.
Right? But she has, like, millions of Facebook followers, right? And they said she was, like, on the first wave of this social media run of just getting all these followers. And at one point, didn't she said that she got a check that was like, oh, last week's check was $23,000 from Facebook. And I was like...
Yeah.
Okay, Carol, like, she's clearly smart.
She was really smart. She, used that social media aspect, but she also used the search engine optimization, SEO.
Yep.
So like if you typed in big cat, like hers would be the first thing that came up. Like she was on it through all different sorts of levels, man. She knew what she was doing.
She was on game. She was on game early. And so it's super interesting to see all that. But I was going to ask you, other than Joe and Carol, who are obviously the two headliners, that's the main event, what other character kind of stood out to you the most, Webby?
Well, I just say all the people in Joe's employ.
Okay.
So I really liked the guy with the no legs. I thought he was a great character, especially towards the end. The transgender guy who got his arm bit off. The blonde guy who was smoking when he was filling up the oil tank. He was a good.
He's like the head like zookeeper or whatever. Yeah.
And then honestly, the only one I thought in the entire documentary who had any sense at all was his campaign manager.
Yes, he seemed to be the most like normal person. Like, if that makes sense.
Right.
Like,
and he had some great lines, though. He had some great
one-liners.
Like, well, this was my dream job, being a campaign manager of a gubernatorial race, because my old job I was selling ammo at Walmart. It's like,
and he's like, right? And he's like, oh, and I'd see Joe like 2 or 3 times a week. And it's just like, what is going on? Like, that doesn't seem like a real place. Like, you work for them, and then by mid-afternoon, you're just blowing stuff up, right? Which just seems insane. Like, the whole operation just seems so insane. So here's the thing. I got a couple quick questions here for you, Webby, okay? Just from the movie that I had, that I wrote down, that I wanted to talk to you about, just in terms of questions that were kind of left unanswered, but had you lean in one way or the next, okay? So the first one, and probably most important one, is, did Carol kill her husband?
100% yes.
100% yes.
Now, there's no doubt in my mind that she was behind that. And then, did you see that that debt, like the case, is now open?
Oh,
they open it back up because of this documentary.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I did not see that. That is insane, and I don't like when that happens. Because clearly documentaries are made, and it's like different levels to documentaries, right? You could have like respectable journalists like the New York Times or like someone respectable putting together a doc. And then you can have like Joe Schmoes that are putting together a doc, and they might make other decisions based on just what's best for the outcome of their doc, not what's a journalistic question in doubt. You know what I mean? In terms of what they put in the doc and what they leave out. So that's kind of weird when stuff like that happens and then they reopen the case. Now, with that said, I still think that, I'm not going to say 100% she killed her husband, but I'll 100% say she knows what happened to her husband. Right? Like there's too many things that are just like, really? Like, so, and her answers are just too messed up. Like when they ask her about, because the way that they dropped information in this was also genius, I thought, right? They tell you a bit of the story, and then they just drop a bomb. Example, they'd be talking about, okay, well, there's a lot of questions surrounding what happened, and the investigation went on, but they didn't find anything. And, oh, yeah, her brother happens to be, like, a sheriff. And it's like, wait, what? Like, of course you could cover that up or have her get off, because her her brother is a sheriff. And her response to that was, well, I didn't really have a relationship with my brother. Cause I left home when I was 15 and he was only 9. And so, yeah, I didn't really know him. It's like, come on, man. Like, what are we talking about? She just had an answer for everything, which was super, super fishy, right? Like,
she had definitely planned all of her answers about the husband, right? Like, this was something that she had gone over in her head a bunch of times. Like,
she had her new husband definitely play the role of the investigator, right? Or the interviewer. She forced that dude to be the interviewer, right? It's just, there's so many things that were just so weird about her story, right? They're like, oh, what about the meat grinder, right? And she's like, oh, I wouldn't have even been able to fit his hand through that. And it's like, wait, how do you even know that? Right? Like, seriously, how do you even know that? Like, it's so insane to me. So yeah, personally, I can't say that she definitely killed her husband, but she definitely knows what happened. Because the other thing is, did he just disappear to Costa Rica? And no, like, I don't think you can do that. Like, that whole shit.
We would have heard from him.
But that whole shit about how she's talking about him flying the plane undetected, like, come on now, that shit can't happen. Like, I needed some like aviation expert to come on and be like, no, that's not possible.
Oh no, I agree.
What did you make of his? I don't even know what her title would have been. I guess his assistant, the ex-husband's assistant, who basically managed all his money, and she kind of, between her and his other family, like his ex-wife and his other daughters, were they seemed convinced that she had something to do with it. The money manager was very careful. The money manager and the lawyer were very, very careful with what they were saying. And I found that super weird. Did you find that as weird as I did?
No, because especially not the lawyer. And I mean, I thought the money manager, yeah, you're right. She was very careful. Now, the lawyer obviously is going to know exactly what he can and cannot say.
Yeah.
Like there's going to be a lot of allegedlys, and this is what I can prove from what I know and what I've been told. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the money manager was even the family. Those three ladies were a little like scary,
Yeah, and definitely. Well, they mentioned that at one point. I guess they were doing stories for National Enquirer or something, and they got, like, she called them and said, listen, you guys got to shut this down, right? And it's just like, yo, Carol's a boss. You could tell that Carol's a boss, and she just seems fishy. She definitely had something to do with it. I totally agree with you, Webby. There's definitely something there. My next question, who set the studio and the crocodile whatever shit on fire?
Oh, Joe.
Right? 100%.
Joe did, for
Hundo,
sure.
Hundo P, I'm with you. Hundo P.
Yeah.
The thing I don't get is, why was he filming that conversation of when he goes to his lawyer and the lawyer tells him, the lawyer's blatantly telling him, like, oh, so all the evidence against you is in this one room? And he's like, yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, do you understand what I'm saying here? Yeah.
He's probably like has his lighter. We can't see him on film, but he probably has the lighter and he's like lighting it in front of his face. Do you understand what I'm saying, Joe? Do you understand?
When I stomp on your foot and say hello, Mr. Thompson, I want you to smile and nod.
Insane. So yeah, definitely think Joe did it. But that also brings up the shady character that is a documentary guy. The guy who was filming. Like, that guy's fucked too.
Yeah,
right.
The National Enquirer, or not the National Enquirer, Current Affairs. Yeah.
That guy's super shady too. You can tell, and there's a lot of stories about him just shadiness that doesn't even have anything to do with this case. But I think that guy could have been in on it too, somehow, some way. Because here's the reason why I think he's in on it. Because he says all of his footage is gone, but there's still so much more footage that's in this doc, right? So to me,
that's a great point.
I think my guy was in on it too with Joe, and he was very careful with what did stay in the fire and what was gone. So maybe he did lose a bunch of shit, but magically there's still so much great footage left. Like, come on, man, that's a little shaky.
But there was definitely a falling out between Joe and that guy. Like, they seemed to be real tight, and then something happened. Like, God knows.
Yo, there's a falling out between Joe and everybody. Literally everybody by the end of the movie, right? By the end of the movie, he doesn't even have, like, they're talking about when he's on trial and there's nobody there to support him, right? Like, do you know the scumbag you got to be to have nobody show up for you when you're on trial? Like, oof. My other question for you, because you might know more than me in terms of U.S. politics, but I assume the same things all over the world. How's there no restrictions on who can run for president or governor? Like, shouldn't there be some, like, low bar of, like, you know what? Joe is not, like, nah, you can't run, right? Like, shouldn't there be some bar somewhere?
Do I need to tell you who the president of the United States of America is right now?
Yes, but
no. Anybody can run. Anybody can
Clearly.
run. Anybody can run and anybody can win.
I'm not familiar with the zoo industry, but after all this stuff happens, right? And Jeff's like, why all these things? He goes through all these lengths to get Joe, like, all fucked up or whatever. And then his next move is just to build another zoo. Like, is the zoo business some booming industry that I don't know about? Like, is that a thing?
Not only that, but if you're Jeff, I guess you can build a zoo with no money.
Well,
Like, that's why he built a couple zoos with nothing. He had no money. That was the other one. So, like, that was my other favorite part of the show, was when that guy Jeff shows up and he pulls up in the Lamborghini, and I leaned over to my wife and I go, "Man, I bet that's rented."
of course. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Right? And then you see his crazy lifestyle, his Vegas lifestyle, which is completely insane. My guy bringing tigers in suitcases. And do you know what's funny? So you're in a relationship, right? So you might not be up. You're definitely not up unless friends are telling you about like the Tinder or Bumble game and all that, right? I'll tell you.
I know about the tiger pictures.
No, but
I know about the tiger pictures.
No, but here's my thing. I would always see in bios, right? Girls would always be like, if you're in a picture with a tiger, swipe left. Like, I have no time for that. And I'd always be like, wait, this is a thing? Like, dudes taking pictures with tigers? Like, what are we talking about right now? And then I'm watching this and I'm like, oh, okay. I'm clearly missing something. Like, I'm so out of the loop, and I've never been so happy to be out of the loop before in my life.
I'm so washed and out of the scene that it's like, I didn't even know, like, even when I was single, ready to mingle, that getting your picture taken with a tiger was even an option.
Right?
Nobody came to me and was like, "Hey, Webby, do you want to take a picture with this tiger?"
But then you see our man's Jeff, and he's like, yeah, man, he's rolling into Vegas with them in his suitcase and bringing girls up to his room for photo shoots and stuff. I'm like, what is happening?
It's like Spanish Fly.
Jeez. I'm like, what is happening? Like, the level of scumbags in this documentary. Like, I don't know if I've seen anything worse than this. Ever.
The other thing, too, like, Jeff was one of the worst, because any guy who wears an Oakley flat brim hat with a do-rag under it is, first of all. But then I saw a great tweet today, and it was like, wow, Jeff definitely shops at Marshall's with the affliction stuff. I was dying. I was dying at that.
That's pretty good. But my guy's such a scumbag.
So Marshall's down loud.
So my guy's talking about to his pregnant wife, and he's like, yeah, so she's about to have the kid anytime soon. And then it's back to the gym for her. And I'm like, hold on. Did he really just say that? Like, out loud, on camera, right beside his wife? Like, what planet are we on right now? And there's no reaction from anyone.
I literally have a pregnant wife here at home, and if I said anything, if I thought that thought, she would murder me.
Obviously.
It would be over.
Obviously.
Obviously.
I was just like, what is happening on this show? I don't understand. So then the other guy who Jeff links up with to build the zoo, he ends up having a falling out with Jeff, which to me, I'm like, okay, this on its own, this guy by himself trying to build a zoo day and night by himself. I see minimal other workers with my guy. Right? And he's like,
all he had was he had the monkey. He had the monkey under his shirt. That's all he had.
It's so insane. It's so insane. So my next question for you, Webby, in terms of quick hitters, which aren't that quick because there's so much going on in this, but who do you trust the least, Jeff Lowe or that Garrison guy? Your Sea-Doo guy. What's his first name? I forget that guy's name.
Was it Jason?
I don't know. Whatever that dude is, the Sea-Doo guy.
No, it's Jeff that I trust.
You trust him the least.
Okay. The least. The other guy, the Sea-Doo guy, was easy to read.
Okay.
He was just a scumbag. He was just a scumbag. But it's the guy who shows up in the Ferrari that's 4 months behind on payment and the rented. That's the guy you want to stay away from. That is the guy who is going to get you in with the guy in the Sea-Doo. You know, like, that's the catalyst of bad shit.
So, okay, my last question, because it kind of ends with my guys, like, in jail, right? And my question for you here is, should the Tiger King have been convicted? Should he have been found guilty by the court? Yes.
Yeah.
So, here's the thing, right? Because there's two sides.
He was terrible to those animals. They're the big losers. In
totally
this whole
agree.
thing. is the animal.
Side note, even the FBI agent or whoever that woman was, who was she? Was she from the FBI or whatever?
Oh no, she was like a no. She was like a district or not state's attorney. I
Yo,
think.
she scared the shit out of me too. Like that woman, like terrified me. She
Yeah.
just seemed weird. Like she meaned business. Like she looked like she could kick my ass, right? But anyways,
Yeah, absolutely.
but it was super shady. But I like how they broke it down that they really didn't have enough on him in terms of the murder for hire, right? But that's why they
But
drubbed up all the animal
stuff.
stuff, and that's what they were able to get him on. Which,
Yeah.
to me, I'm fine with at the end of the day. And I do find it super weird that there's mad people online with this hashtag free Joe Exotic and shit. And I'm like, hold on, that's your takeaway from this? Like, you watch that whole thing, and your takeaway from all this is free Joe Exotic? Like, what? Get the fuck out of here, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's insane to me. But overall, Webby,
Now I have one more.
No, go on.
One
go on.
question for you.
Yeah, I'm here.
One question for you. Did the Joe Exotic music and music videos make you a convert to country and western music?
This is going to sound really bad. And I'm so glad you asked me this because I would have forgot to say it. So, obviously, I can't claim to be a country expert, right? Like, I don't know much about country music. But listening to my guy, I was like, does this sound far off from actual country music? Like, if I was like in a car with one of my boys who likes country music and they put on a country track, whatever
And you threw on "I Saw a Tiger."
No, but I'm saying, and they dropped maybe not I Saw the Tiger, or maybe not the one about homegirl killing her husband, which was a great music video, by the way. Yo, that has to go.
I know.
First off, can we stop and talk about that video for a second? That's like hit 'em up levels of music video production. Okay, my guy had the fake Carol feeding body pieces to the tiger. That is great. That is great production value. Great work by Joe and whoever his team is that puts together his music videos. Again, I'm being dead serious when I say this, rivaling the levels of Hit 'em Up, right? But
Joe Exotic, say what you will, very creative guy.
yo, that's what I'm saying though. I'm like, so forget about like the songs with complete, like, obviously some songs were more ridiculous in nature than others. But the ones that weren't like completely insanely ridiculous, if you just played that, and I don't know, I don't have one written down on me offhand, not the music video, but I'm saying if you just played one of the songs, right? Like he's just like when he was saying goodbye to his tiger zoo or whatever. If you just played that song
Right.
along with like, let's say what the 7th song is right now on the country charts, and you played both of those songs to me side by like run after the next, I wouldn't have been like, yo, this is a crazy ass tiger guy. Do you know what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying. And hey, someone in the mentions is going to get at me, and I'm okay with that, but I said what I said. Okay? Now, was it actually him singing any of those songs?
No, no, man, no, man. That's,
So who's
I mean,
his? So he's Milli Vanilli again?
100%. I think that he sends out the lyrics for somebody to sing, and then he maybe records his voice a little bit over it, but that's it.
Oh man. So do we think he actually writes those songs though?
Oh yeah. Oh, he writes the songs for sure. You don't write. You don't write a classic like "I Saw a Tiger" and get like somebody. That's a unique experience from Joe Exotic right there.
Yo, I mean, absolutely insane. But okay, Webby. So I was thinking about this in terms of while we'll be watching shows and reviewing shows, and whenever we come across something that we've both watched, let's give it a rating system. And I was thinking, because this is the On Blast podcast, what if we rate it in terms of flame emojis? So out of 5 flame emojis, what are you giving? 5 being the best, meaning really, really good, top of the line. 5 flame emojis, what are you giving Tiger King?
I'm gonna give it 4.
Okay.
I'm gonna give it 4. I'd give it the full 5, but I felt that like the 7 parts.
Mm-hmm.
You really could have pared it down to a real tight 5.
Agreed.
But again, with what we're going through now, a 7 episodes isn't the worst thing in the world. I thought the characters were great. Now, I heard a great thing. It was like, for a good documentary, you need three things. You need a subject, you need characters, and you need luck.
Mm-hmm.
And they got all three.
Yeah.
Or no. It was a subject, footage, and luck, and they got all three. And so I just can't give it the full 5, but I can give it a strong 4. Strong 4 flame emojis with a tiger emoji as well.
Fair enough. And you know what, to your point about, footage and a good character and story, I wonder what the original story was that my guy was planning to tell. Because when it starts, clearly this is not the story that he was going to tell, right? And so think about all the footage that he probably has on, like, all the other dudes, but then this, like, murder for hire thing just takes off, and it's like, okay, I guess I got to follow this story lead, right? Because it was 5 years, essentially, in the making that my guy was working on this doc. And so many things happened, right? So that part was pretty interesting to me. But overall, I'm going to give this 3 out of 5 flame emojis. And the reason being is because I think it was a really good doc, but I think the first 3 or 4 episodes were way stronger than how it ended, right? And obviously the way how it ended is so much dictated in terms of, like, well, what happened, right? Like the storyline of what happened, like my guy's in jail. But the storytelling angle, like, it came out the gates hot and then kind of tails off. And near the end of it, I kind of was like, okay, I'm not having fun watching this anymore. Like, these people are all disgusting. These people are all scumbags. I was getting kind of mad at certain things because it made me think about all the things that I was hearing people talk about this documentary. No one was bringing up the fact that, like, yo, these guys are pedophiles, right? Like, they kind of gloss over the fact that both people, in terms of Doc Antilles and Joe Exotic, have these people come in really young, and he's clearly taking advantage of them early on at a young age.
Using drugs.
Yes, using drugs. And then when they bring in the fact that these guys are all fucked up on meth, you start to feel really bad. When the suicide happens, I was like, yo, this is next level. Like, I don't want to be watching this type shit. The fact that they had footage of, like, the room, not of the actual but there was just so much going on that I was like, yo, the vibe of this whole thing just went left, and I'm not with it anymore. So I give it 3 out of 5. Still good. Still a good watch. And to people who are like, I'm not watching this, like, you're just saying that just to say it, right? Like, what else are you doing? I'm not saying you got to watch the whole thing,
right.
But watch the first episode at least, and then take it from there. You got the time, right?
Yeah, it's like, ooh, you're going to be principled and try to be cool and not watch something just because a whole bunch of people are watching it. I miss me with that.
Yeah, I'm with you for sure. So next up, we're going to talk about something that you brought up to me the last time we spoke, and also on my other pod with John Chidley Hill. He also brought up that I need to watch Cheer. Okay? And I did.
Yes, did you
I watched it? Cheer, and I will say I loved it.
And I loved it.
It was so good. I'm going to say this off the bat because I know we're going from one rating system to the next right away. I'm going to say I'm giving that 5 out of 5. 5 flame emojis for the show Cheer because they did such a great job of storytelling. The storytelling is so good, and all these characters, even maybe if they first introduce them to you and you think, I don't know if I'd really like this person, they do such a good job of making you care and root for every single person that they did a deep dive on in this show, right? It was such a good job of storytelling, such a good job of manipulating your emotions to make you care about this, like, random D2 school or whatever it is, cheerleading competitions, right? Like, it's such good storytelling. I thought it was really good, and it was one of those things where everyone recommended it, said it was really good, and it still surpassed my expectations. It was still better than I thought it would be. What did you think about it? I know you kind of gave me a little bit, but obviously you held back because I hadn't watched it yet.
Like you say, we just talked about it with the Joe Exotic, the subject matter, the footage, and luck, and boy, did that have all 3 of them in spades. And then just like Joe Exotic and Tiger King, the characters were so good, man. Like you say, it starts, and you even have the whole relationship cycle with some of the characters. You're like, oh, I like them. Now I don't like them.
Yeah.
Now I like them again.
What's that guy's name?
And
Was
it's
it
like,
Ladarius?
yeah,
Ladarius,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. He was like, and you're like, I see where he's coming from, but he's kind of a dick.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
oh, that's why he is the way he is.
Exactly.
And then, but how about the coach? I mean, the coach was so good.
Great character. Great character. It made you really like the coach and root for the coach. Because in the beginning, I'll be honest with you, I was watching it with my little cousin, and I said to her, I was like, this is kind of interesting, but I wonder if, because I was thinking of it in terms of when they were making the comparisons between college football, right? I was making,
Saban.
yeah.
She was Nick Saban, right?
But I was like, I wonder if she really does like these kids and their different backgrounds and all that, because obviously you're talking about an area that's super religious, and most of the people that probably go to her church aren't about the LGBTQ community, right? And so to have her be a supporter of them with her team, I actually said to my little cousin while I was watching it, I'm like, I wonder if that's actually legit, or if she's just doing it because she needs these people for her team to be successful, right? Like, I questioned that early on, and the more you dug into the story, and when you see her go and she talks to her dad, I was like, oh no, this seems really legit. I like to think that I watch enough reality TV that I read through people and I'm like, this is bullshit. It didn't seem like bullshit, right? She seemed like a very genuine, real character. And even like hearing her husband talk and hearing them talk about her family and stuff and how much she puts into it, and even just seeing some of the conversations which they didn't exploit, right? Like some of the conversations where the team members are going to talk to her about something serious, they didn't exploit it and make her like, oh no, well, this is what you should do, and like they didn't really tell you what the conversation was. They just showed the fact that the players had the trust to go to her and seek her advice, and they go in upset but leave super happy, and they're hugging and everything's okay. And I was like, okay, cool.
The other thing too was that like the documentary crew that was filming obviously had a lot of respect for her and the kids, because there were some points that they'd be like, listen, this is a private conversation, we're going to have this off camera, and the documentary crew like respected those decisions, right? So I thought that was even really cool.
Yeah. It was just really, really well done. And, I talked about like just how crazy the emotional roller coaster was. Like they did such a good job of storytelling, and you were right about someone getting hurt every single episode, right? Like that was just like so insane. Someone like doing mad flips in the air and just landing on the ground. And you're like, this person weighs like 80 pounds. Like how are they like walking after this, right? But I will say
the athleticism that some of those girls and guys exhibit is like insane, right?
It's so hard.
Things that you wouldn't see on a basketball court or a football field.
Well, the way that they broke it down, that all the work that goes into basically how long's the routine? 2 minutes? 2.5 minutes or something like that. And it's like you're just rehearsing the same thing over and over and over and over and over. And then in that 2-minute span, one person can just like fall on the not even the most difficult part of your routine. I was just like, oh, okay. Like they did a good job of explaining it to the layman, right? Because I don't know anything about cheerleading, but they broke the whole thing down and it made sense. But I'll say this, the end scenes, right? When they're showing them winning and they're celebrating and they're cutting to all the different families watching back at home. And when they cut to Ladarius, his brother, who obviously the whole story they told throughout was the brother beat him up the whole time he was growing up, trying to like literally, and I wish I could say this in a more polite or PC way, but literally trying to beat the gay out of him as a kid, right? And then you see the brother now watching their team win, and the brother sitting there watching in tears. I was sitting there, I was like, yo, this is like powerful storytelling. It was just so well done. I'm giving it 5 out of 5 flames. What are you giving it?
Those football documentaries that they do that are similar, I love, and like that way that they film it and make it look like that Friday Night Lights style.
Yeah.
I love the style of it. But I just thought that unlike some of those football ones, the Last Chance U, this one definitely like was a little more uplifting and left me with a warm, fuzzy feeling rather than being like, oh, I hate this coach, and hope these people like. I hope these kids walk out on them.
Yeah, they did it was really interesting, and so many different angles, like different people growing up. The only person that came off not likable was the girl who's like the superstar, who's like signing all the autographs. Her
Yeah.
dad. That guy is a
Oh
scumbag.
yeah.
That guy's like a
Her whole family.
yeah, A1 scumbag, just trying to like make money and exploit his daughter. Like that guy's a scumbag. But
Yeah.
other than that, here for everyone in that. Great storytelling. John was right. He told me he's like Jerry is just like the craziest character ever, but so happy and so positive energy. And he's always watching the challenge during like every time they show them in
Yeah.
their room, they're watching the challenge. I was like, all right, all right. Yeah, it was just really good. Really good. Dope show. Highly recommended for people who haven't watched it.
We need to get Jerry. We need to get Jerry on You Killed It.
Right? That would be must see potting right there, right? Must see potting.
That'd be it.
Let's get to some other just what else have you been watching? And this is where we'll go kind of back and forth and sort of trade things that we'll recommend to each other, but also if we just come across something crazy or, that was kind of cool. I'll go first because my one thing is kind of like out there. It's not really a show. But people have had mixed reviews of all this trend of everyone's on IG Live, right? Like there's so many different IG live streams going on and all celebrities seem to be doing IG lives or shows, whether you're Miley Cyrus or whether, shouts. We talked about the D Nice thing that he's still rocking and doing his live sets every night. But a couple things this week since we've talked really like stood out to me the most that I enjoyed so much. And there were these IG live battles. So we've talked about it before, right? When Swizz Beatz and Timbo, they, I think, started this trend, right? Where they kind of were trading hits back and forth. They did that a couple years ago, I want to say. But this week, there's a beat battle between Hit Boy and Boy Wonder. And it was so good. Like, I clicked on it not knowing what to expect, really, because you're on an IG live feed, which obviously isn't like the best feeds out there, right? It's not like you're hearing perfect audio or perfect video or whatever. But watching these two dudes who have just hit after hit just go back and forth and trade bangers, it was so good. Now, I don't know. Did you see it, by the way? Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you seen it?
I just saw the social media going on. Like I think I was watching Ozark or something, but people were tweeting about it.
Social media was going crazy and it was really cool. And the one thing I'll say about that is it was cool in the sense of, again, as a hip hop fan, you're hearing just guys, two of the best in the game right now, just trade off bangers. But the one thing that was funny was Hit Boy was you could tell he was being salty because two things. Boy Wonder got Drake to redo. There's a line that Drake has in a song where he says, I should probably sign a Hit Boy because I got all the hits, boy. He got Drake to revoice that. So it's like, no disrespect to Hit Boy, but I got all the hits, boy. So Boy Wonder would play a track and then drop that every time. So you could tell Hit Boy was getting salty about that. So then he would play the real one right after and pretend like he's not mad, but he's really mad. And then at one point he'd be like, what is this, a Drake concert? All you keep doing is playing Drake songs. Like, it'd be great if I had the top guy in the game that I could just slide my beats to whenever I wanted. It's just like straight hateration going on, right? But either way, still a good time, still a lot of fun. And the one thing I'll say, I didn't realize it until watching that battle. I realized that the Drake that I like the most, by far, is Boy Wonder Drake. And I didn't realize it because there were just so many tracks that I didn't realize were Boy Wonder beats that I was like, oh, this all makes sense. I like these are all my favorite Drake songs and it's all Boy Wonder beats. I'm talking Pound Cake, 5 a.m. in Toronto, Free Smoke, like wherever you want to go with Drake. I was just 8 out of 10 off Scorpion. Like all these tracks, I was just like, oh, these are all Boy Wonder beats. It all makes sense.
When does Just Blaze do his?
So... was it? Hold on, sorry. I said Timberland versus Swizz. Was it Just Blaze versus Swizz? It might have been. I'm not sure.
That was the one that was a couple of years
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the original one. It might have been. Oh, or maybe it was Timbo and Swizz, then Just Blaze and Swizz went at it. I think that might have been it. But yeah, that'd be one. I'd be in to watch that for sure. That'd be dope. That'd be crazy dope. So yeah, I thought that was really cool. And the other IG battle that was last night that I ended up watching was it was an R&B battle. And I know everyone might not be an R&B person, but I'm
Neo.
still of a certain age where R&B was a thing. I grew up with R&B. R&B mattered, and it was Neo versus songwriter Jonte, who did a lot of like stuff. I want to say like Atlanta's So Deaf guys, but also like has bangers for Mariah, Mary J, Aaliyah. Like he's a
Okay.
classic, like classic hits. So it was him versus Neo, and the difference here was these guys were super organized. They did 20 tracks.
Yeah.
They went song for song back and forth, and the rules were you could only play the song for a minute 30. And they were respectful to each other. They were super nice. It was super just like well behaved, super mutually respectful towards each other. And like in Neo's, Big Tig was at Neo's house, and Big Tig's in the background, like getting so hype. But yeah, it was just an hour or whatever of just R&B bangers of like the past decade to 20 years or whatever. So good. Enjoyed it.
Were
IG
they
Live
were
winning.
they singing or were they
No,
just
they're playing their
cutting it up?
beats. So they were all just playing. So they were just
Okay.
playing. They're going back and forth playing their hits. So it was just an R&B battle where you had to play whatever hits that you produced. That's what it was. So Neo, obviously, we know
Okay.
he sings a lot of the songs he produced. Cool. So he had a bunch of those songs in, but he also had like Mario, "Let Me Love You," or right, which is like one of the best R&B songs ever. Had like,
Did he do the one? What was it? Carrie
yep,
Hilson, Kanye, and Neo.
yes, yep,
That
yeah,
that's a
that's a
jam.
jam.
That's a jam.
He had straight bangers. Like it was so good. He also ended it with, I think he ended it with Mario, "Let Me Love You," and then Beyonce's, what's Irreplaceable, to the left, right? And it's just like,
That was him.
yeah, that's Neo, right? That's what, no, Webby, that's what the whole thing was. The whole thing was, yo, that was Neo, yo, that was Jonte, and they're just going back and forth the whole time. And watching it, I'm just like, yo, these guys are dope. And it was just a good vibe, right? Like you just put it on and it was just a good vibe to listen to. These IG lives, I know, like, I see this on Twitter and I see this on social media where a lot of people are like, oh, everyone thinks they got to do an IG live nowadays and whatever. Like, this is so stupid. And I have the reverse opinion. It's like, well, you don't have to watch it. Like, why are you complaining about something that you don't have to watch? Right?
I think it's really cool that they're using this new, like, again, it's about the opportunity that they
Mm-hmm.
have right now with the way that the world is. It's like, let's take this thing that's already existed and change it and use it for our way. I just think it's so sweet. Like, it's awesome.
Yeah, and just finding new ways to use old technology, right? Like Instagram's been around for a while, but let's take advantage of the fact that, for the most part, people have the news on the TV if the TV's on or whatever, but guaranteed they're on their phone. So when you're flicking around, you're on your phone, you're scrolling, and you're like, oh, this person's live. What's going on here? Right? And again, it was just banger after banger. You were talking about Knock You Down, Carrie Hilson. That's what the song's called. I just had to look it up.
It's a great
But yeah, I
tune.
did that.
It's a great
Remember
tune.
Neo and Fabulous Make You Better? Banger, right? Like
Yes. Yes.
it was just hit after hit. So good. So that was one of my recommendations. I know it's kind of out there and kind of different, but I watched that and I just kind of love just the vibe of people trying something new and different. And it was cool to watch. It was fun. And I'm sure more
Yeah.
people will do it,
Eh,
right? Like, people are making the jokes. They're like, somewhere along the line, they're gonna do like Backstreet Boys versus NSYNC, and white people are gonna say they made this up. And I started laughing. I was like, the internet's gotta chill, man. There's too much chill. Gotta chill. But it brought up the
I'm
point.
sure, but I'm sure it will
Well,
grow.
people are
Yeah.
begging for right now. I saw people online. They're saying we need to get Rick Ross versus Jeezy. People are saying they need Bad Boy versus So Def, like Puffy versus Jermaine Dupri. I'm like, yo, I'm here. Like, tell me when those are. I'm here for that.
No, no, no. Miss me with the puffy Jermaine Dupri, but call me when the Rose Jeezy gets
Okay,
off. All right,
will do. Will do.
that. I'll be there
Will
for
do
that.
for sure. Let's flip over to you, Webby. What's something that you've been watching that I might not have seen? What's something that's going on?
I mentioned it. I mentioned it
Mm-hmm.
last week, but you have to watch 000
Okay.
on Amazon
Okay.
Prime. It is. I finished it. It's like 8 episodes. Every one is about 45 minutes to an
Okay.
hour. No, if you like any of the mob movies, the Goodfellas, the Scarfaces, anything like that, you will love this. And not only is it an awesome story and like crazy, but it is like tripped out. Like there's a scene with a giant pig, okay, like the biggest pig you've ever seen, and something happens with this pig, and it's nuts. It's so good, but there's three different like storylines.
Okay.
It's about a big cocaine shipment that's going from Mexico to Italy by way of New Orleans.
Okay.
And so it follows these three different people in these storylines. The Mexican guy is unhinged. The New Orleans shipping people are awesome, and then the Italians are nuts.
Okay.
And I'm just telling you, just find
I'm
it.
in.
I don't know if you
Who
have
was
Amazon
it? I
Prime,
think.
but you can probably find it.
Yeah, you can find anything online. I mean, now that you have the time to like search for it,
Yeah.
you can find anything online. I think Dunlop might have tweeted at us after listening to the first one that we did, and he said, "Thanks for that recommendation of 000." He liked it. I think it was Dunlop. Pretty sure it was.
Watch it.
Okay.
Check out 000.
Okay. I'm in.
Yeah. Okay, so that was my TV one.
Okay, I like it. I have a recommendation for the people at home, and I know you will co-sign this with me. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because it's a show that I think was kind of popular, but now that, enough time has passed, it might be more under the radar and might be a thing that a lot of people have not seen. But if you haven't seen it, you most definitely should go watch it, because I think it kind of sums up. I'll just say what it is first. It's How to Make It in America. Did you like that show when it came out? Did you watch that on HBO?
You know what? I had kind of like Entourage hangover.
Okay. And I think that's why it got canceled.
Yeah, I do too. But it was a little smarter.
Yeah, I thought it was a really cool show. It's basically about these two friends, a white guy and a Hispanic guy. They're like best friends. And it's basically, the whole premise of it is these guys are trying to find their hustle into making it in America. They're from New York, and it's really like, I want to say it's really like hipster culture before hipster culture went mainstream, and that's why I think it failed on HBO, because I think that if that show comes out a couple years later where hipster culture becomes more mainstream, and it's not even hipster really, like if you think about it, their character's not really hipster, but you know what I'm saying, like just that culture of, kind of the parties that they went to and like the scenes. And remember Lake Bell's character's dating a super hipster dude at one point during the right when they go for like the mass bike ride. Remember that episode? Yeah. So it's a quick watch. It's two seasons. I want to say like 10 episodes. So it might be like 20 episodes total. But to me, it's really good. And it's just one of those things where if it came out a couple years later and Twitter was around, that's kind of the generation or the Twitter culture of people that would have made the show a success, and it would have definitely stayed on the air. Because I think of something like Girls, right? Where like Girls was a smash hit, but I think a big part of Girls was also the social media following that added to watching it, right?
Not only that, but like, and when it, like, you're absolutely right about like when it hit.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that it's funny with HBO. It's like you made a great point in that if it had waited like a couple of years, the show would have blown up.
Yeah.
It just kind of it wasn't the right time for that show.
Yeah, it's 2011
compared to when it came out.
Well, it's 2011, right? So you got to think about where like culture is at that time and where culture is now. And maybe a better example, because like early Girls was really, really good, right? But I think of a show like Insecure. Insecure is a smash. Insecure is really, really good show from the beginning. Now, Insecure didn't have the ratings right at the beginning to last on HBO, but the Twitter social media following, like that shit was trending every single time that show aired live in an era where the only thing people really watch live is Game of Thrones. But yet, when Insecure was airing, that would, like, you had to tune into that live because Twitter was just on fire. And I think that representation made it so HBO couldn't cancel it. Like, there's no way you could even say, oh, ratings are bad, but it didn't matter. Like, you had to greenlight that show for more seasons. And I think the same thing could have happened to How to Make It in America, just because you had, again, we talked about characters. It's an ensemble cast, but really good characters that you were all rooting for these guys to make it. And it showed you the different subsections of New York, whether you're talking about race, cultural background, age, even gender, whatever it is, there was something for you in that show. And it was just funny. Like, it was fun. It had the fun vibe of Entourage, but also I think like the more likable, relatable characters, if that makes sense. How to Make It in America was a better cross of people. Like, they had all kinds of different characters from all different backgrounds hanging out with each other. And I don't think that's something you see a lot on TV, where that's not the storyline. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you have a show, it's like, oh, that's the black guy. Oh, you're the girl in our crew. Oh, you're blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you have all these different people, but that was never really, you know what I mean? Like, the crux of what the show was. It was more like, we're all people from different backgrounds, all trying to find our way in our 20-somethings in New York City.
It did almost what Girls couldn't do.
Yeah.
Was show the relationships with a different wide range of people rather than just all these people in the same socioeconomic.
Exactly. And Girls became like the funny joke because you're watching it and making fun of it because it's like, these are just like rich white girl problems, right? Like, that's kind of what it turned into. And you're kind of just like laughing at it like, shut up. Like, why are you, right? Like, that kind of turned into what Girls was. And I hate that Girls and Insecure always gets, because I think they're two different shows, but I think the story of the two like main characters, in terms of these are strong, like powerful, great female voices that were able to get their own shows off the ground. I think that's the part that always made those shows link. But overall,
the other one too is like the cool juxtaposition of Marnie and Molly.
Ooh.
Right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Like, that's incredible.
They're kind of that same kind of person.
Yeah,
and it's like, at one point you're like, oh, I kind of feel bad. And then you're like, oh, no, you're an absolute sociopath, man.
That's like, awesome. I never actually did that before. I like that. Yeah.
The girl who plays Molly, I think, in Insecure is unbelievable.
So good. I remember...
Like, so good, but so... You're just like, oh my God, like, whoa. Like, you could totally see yourself. It was the same thing with Marnie. It was like, oh yeah, like one night out in the town and I met you, like, I'm sure like you'd get, and then you'd be like, oh my God, what have I done?
What did I just do? Yes, that's so true. I like that comparison. I never even broke it down to that level, but I like that. It's so true. That's my recommendation for people. Go watch. If you haven't seen it, go watch How to Make It in America. It's a quick watch. And again, what else do you have to do? And I bet you once you start it, it's just such a fun watch that you will just continue watching it, and you'll be done the 2 seasons very quickly by the time we meet again, and you can tell us how good the show was. Yeah?
I got one more, and it's kind of a cop-out because we've talked about it so much, but it was actually on like a marathon a couple of weeks ago, I think, when this first started, and I just can't get it out of my head.
Okay.
Is not even season 1, but season 2 of Atlanta.
Oh, okay. I think I saw what season is it where, what's my guy? Paperboy's like being chased and he gets robbed by the kids and he runs into the woods. That's season 2, right?
Into the woods?
I saw that episode a couple days ago and I was like, oh, I forgot about how dope this is.
Oh, the one where they go to the German village? And he goes with Van, and Van is like speaking German. It's like, honestly, like the first season of Atlanta is amazing because it's a little more like getting to know these characters, and there's like some really funny ones and some really thought-provoking ones. But the second season comes at you, and it's so heavy and so like it looks beautiful. Every episode is like a whole new story, but then there's like the thread that goes through them all. It's just genius. And that Teddy...
the Teddy...
the one where Donald...
Yeah, Donald Glover's...
what was his name?
Yeah, I can't remember his name. And do you know what's funny? Sorry.
Scariest to happen.
Do you know what the 2 Teddys that popped into my head first that I knew automatically? I'm like, that's not it. It was Teddy Ruxpin and Teddy Bruckshot.
Teddy Pendergrass?
No.
Teddy Bruckshot.
Teddy Bruckshot. I was like, well, no, it's neither of those 2.
Teddy Bridgewater and Teddy Pendergrass, and it's neither of those either.
Famous Teddies. All right, go. No, I'm joking. But I know everyone that's seen that show knows exactly the episode you're talking about because that shit was fucked up.
Yeah. If you've never seen Atlanta,
Yeah.
like, you should watch both seasons, but if you have to watch one, like, season 2 would take you probably, about, like...
No, I disagree. Go watch the whole
5
thing.
hours?
I disagree. Go watch the whole thing. Watch the whole thing. You gotta watch Atlanta. And again, now, what excuse do you have? No excuse.
Yeah, exactly.
Webby, man, this was a lot of fun, man. Really appreciate you stopping by so we can talk about, again, we're going to continue to try to do this as long as we can because we got to keep finding things to watch and finding things to entertain us, whether it's the Raptors beating the Sixers again or it's a challenge which starts Wednesday, April 1st.
We might have to do a little double up on the challenge because I'm definitely excited.
Okay.
And then the other thing is, too, Shelly, is that I'm going to start watching Vanderpump Rules.
Oh, yes. Okay. All right. I like it. From
season 1. I'm going to start.
Wow. Do you know what? I don't even know if I've seen season 1. Because I feel like when I jumped in, it was probably like season 3 or whatever, and I would never like just go back to the beginning of Vanderpump Rules. But now with all this time, why not? And the early seasons are a lot crazier than it is now. So might be a good look. I might do that actually. That's a good call. All right. I like it. Webby, where can the people find you though to tweet at you because they didn't like your rankings, how many flame emojis you were giving stuff, or they want to recommend you some shows to watch? Where can the people find you, my dude?
Or they want to chirp at me about the Sixers Raptors series, which seems like is happening a lot right now.
Well, it's almost over, man. It's almost over.
I know, but it doesn't end. It doesn't end great, Shelly. It doesn't end great. We've reached the zenith. We've reached the peak of the series when we had the airplane, when we had the dunk and the airplane.
It's true.
It's all downhill from here.
It's true.
But yeah, hit me up on Twitter and Instagram at awebster84.
Sounds dope for sure. Follow up Mr. Andrew Webster, as he said, awebster84 on both Instagram and Twitter. My name is Sheldon Alexander. You can find me on Twitter at Shell Alexander. You can find me also on Instagram at Sheldon Alexander. Follow up on both places. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, Google Play, YouTube, all the places that you get your podcasts. Like and subscribe, support the movement. We got these video pods going. Me and Webby linking up from East Coast to West Coast. We got you covered. And really mean it. We're looking for things to watch, so keep sending us your recommendations, and we'll continue to pump out recommendations with what we're watching. But really, follow us, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Just keep spreading the love, sharing the content, as you know, we all try to get through this together as one big, happy, on blast family. So really huge shout outs to Mr. Andrew Webster for stopping by and joining me. Really appreciate it. Thanks to everyone who's been watching and rocking with us as we've continued to do the live streams on my IG Live during the whole Raptors run. For those people who don't know, Raptors, they're playing Raptor games every single night in chronological order during the playoffs. And we're doing On Blast rewatch parties on my IG Live. So tune into that every night. Huge shouts to the people that have been rocking with us there.
When does You Killed It start?
You Killed It. We did a preview episode of You Killed It to get you ready for this season of the challenge, which starts on Wednesday, April 1st. So right now, if you're not sure about whether you should watch the challenge or not, we give you a full breakdown of all the characters. So that's all you need to know going in. We tell you who everyone is. So you know what? You could pull up on your laptop the cast list so you see pictures of these people, and we tell you who everybody is. Everything you need to know, so you have no excuses. Oh, I don't know who everyone is. I'm not going to get it. You don't have to get it, first off. But we help you out. We tell you who all the people are from all the different shows, and we got you covered on the You Killed It pod. Same thing. You can find it on this same stream. Wherever you're listening to this podcast right now, just scroll up a little and you'll find the You Killed It podcast. But John and I will be here to break that down each and every week as the season starts. And yeah, we're here. We're here. On blast, baby. Making moves. So for my guy, Andrew Webster, like I always say, I used to pray for times like this, to rhyme like this. This is the On Blast podcast. As always, unpolished and unapologetic. Until next time, see ya.
Peace.
On blast.